Safeguarding awareness for adults at risk. What is safeguarding? Safeguarding adults means protecting a person's right to live in safety, free from abuse and neglect. It is about people and organizations working together to prevent and stop both the risks and experience of abuse or neglect. The local authority has a duty of care and must act when it has reasonable cause to suspect that a vulnerable adult in its area may be experiencing or is at risk of abuse or neglect. Safeguarding duty of care applies to adults who are aged 18 or over, has a care and support need, whether or not the local authority is meeting any of those needs, is experiencing or at risk of abuse or neglect. Any adult who is vulnerable because of mental disorder, learning difficulties, physical and/or sensory impairment, or older age, and who is unable to take care of themselves or unable to protect themselves against significant harm or exploitation. What is adult abuse? Abuse is a violation of an individual's human and civil rights by any other person or persons. It can be a single act or repeated acts. It can be physical, verbal or psychological. It can be an act of neglect or an omission to act, or being persuaded to enter into a non-consensual, financial or sexual transaction. Forms of adult abuse. There are many different forms of adult abuse. For each form of adult abuse listed, there are many examples of what it involves. These include physical abuse. This can involve things such as hitting, biting and kicking, withholding food, inappropriate restraint, confinement, and many more. Domestic violence or abuse can be identified by many of the indicators of abuse outlined in this briefing, such as psychological, physical, sexual, financial and emotional abuse. Coercive or controlling behavior is a core part of domestic violence. Sexual abuse can involve rape or sexual assault, indecent exposure, inappropriate touch, pornography, or any sexual activity that the person lacks the capacity to consent to. Financial abuse can include fraud or scamming, misuse of power of attorney, false representation, arranging less care than needed to maximize inheritance, or preventing a person from accessing their own money, benefits or assets. Neglect or acts of omission can involve pressure sores or ulcers, refusal of access to visitors, poor environment, failure to administer medication, malnutrition, preventing someone making their own decisions and failure to provide food, shelter and warmth. Psychological abuse. This includes threats of harm or abandonment, enforced isolation, cyberbullying, removing any aids, intimidation, or coercion, and preventing someone from meeting their religious and cultural needs. Modern slavery. This involves human trafficking, sexual exploitation, domestic servitude, debt bondage, and forced labor. Organizational abuse. Some examples include not offering choice, not providing adequate food or drink, discouraging visits, poor quality care due to high turnaround, and a lack of respect for privacy. Discriminatory abuse. This is unequal treatment based on age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage, pregnancy, and many more factors, and these are called protected characteristics under the Equality Act. Self-neglect. Some examples include lack of self-care, failure to seek help, inability to manage one's personal affairs, and the inability to avoid self-harm. Indicators of abuse or neglect. There are many possible indicators that someone may be experiencing abuse or neglect. Here you can see some examples of indicators of abuse or neglect. However, these are not the only indicators, and they vary depending on the type of abuse. It's not always easy to spot the signs of abuse. Someone may make excuses for why they are bruised, short of money, or may not want to go out. Information sharing and confidentiality. Sharing the right information, at the right time with the right people, is fundamental to good safeguarding practice. As a general principle, it is your responsibility to raise a safeguarding issue or concern with your coordinator or another member of Volunteer Centre Sutton staff. If you are not sure if your concern is covered by this policy, share it anyway, and we will be able to help. The law does not prevent the sharing of sensitive, personal information within organizations if there is a safeguarding concern. Managing a disclosure. What procedure should be followed if someone discloses to you information regarding abuse? 1. Listen carefully to what is being said. Do not ask lots of questions or interrogate. Allow them to tell you in their own words. 2. Be reassuring, but do not give your own opinion. 3. Confidentiality. You should remind them that you must share the information. 4. Do not make promises, as you cannot predict the outcome. 5. Confirm that the information will be treated seriously. 6. Make notes, facts only. Sign and date it, then pass it to your coordinator as soon as possible. Volunteer Centre Sutton will manage disclosure in line with LBS safeguarding procedures. Reporting a concern. Early referral gives more time to protect the individual and can prevent the situation from escalating. If unable to contact Volunteer Centre Sutton, and there is immediate risk, call 999 or duty social worker. Then follow this up with Volunteer Centre Sutton. Your coordinator will advise you of the next steps. Our designated safeguarding officer is Anita Morlin. If you have a concern about the Volunteer Centre Sutton, or any member of our staff or volunteers, you should contact LBS directly, Local Authority Designated Officer. Further information on safeguarding procedures can be found using the links below.